Hello everybody, Joff Brown here. Just wanted to say yesterday that I would produce a little short video on exercise training, in particular kind of resistance and weight-based training, and how that might be useful for yourselves with McArdles. I wanted to use today to kind of go not so specific, but more kind of general, kind of my thoughts as to why resistance training or any kind of exercise is really good for anyone with McArdles. I'm going to talk briefly about kind of how I would go about starting any kind of exercise training, irrespective of whether you're 5 or 95. What I kind of have as my standard go-tos to begin with, as to whether you should start a resistance style training program, and then I'll give you some very loose kind of guidance beyond that. So to begin with, in terms of like where do you start? The first thing really to kind of go into is kind of injuries. If you have any kind of injury or pain, and I'm talking, when we say pain, we're talking about general day-to-day pain, doing this and that really hurts, bending forwards, you get back pain, hip pain, those kinds of areas. I would definitely suggest before you go to any exercise program, get that stuff checked out, because there's definitely going to be a difference between pain and injuries induced by McArdles and pain and injuries just induced by general day-to-day life or other systems in the body that might not be working so great. And so the idea being, when you're exercising, is you want to optimize your body's efficiency as best as possible. And if you can treat any pain or injuries prior to exercise, I definitely recommend that. So that kind of leads me into my golden rule. And I have one rule for when I treat people for pain, and that is do no harm. If it hurts, stop. The second rule, kind of caveat underneath that is don't be an idiot. Listen to rule number 1. If it hurts, stop. Okay? Don't go stupid. Don't push yourself too hard. I mean, there's a difference between pushing hard and pushing yourself into pain and injuries. So, kind of now that's done. Let's talk about why you want to train, what the benefits of it, and how to go about it. So to begin with, I don't know how everybody's levels of kind of understanding of the energy systems in the body are, but I'm going to briefly go over it like 2 minutes, just so it gives a bit more substance to what I'm going to talk about in a little while. So first of all, we've got here, hopefully you can all see and read this, I've written down the kind of 3 main plus bonus of a ketogenesis, the energy systems in the body that you've used to create energy. So you have your phosphagen system. So this is in your mitochondrial cells, and they're mostly musculoskeletal, so within the muscles themselves, your mitochondrial cells use your creatine phosphate to create ATP. This will generally give you instant energy between 1 and 8 seconds. So this is the powerful, fast movements it gives you. So sprinters use this mostly. So for sort of slightly slower, more mid-level kind of exercise, 30 seconds to kind of 2 minutes, you use glycolysis. And that's that you use your free-flowing glucose in the blood or glycogen. So glycogen is kind of the stopping point for McArdles. This is kind of glycolysis is the kind of the energy system patients don't use most efficiently. Therefore, when you run out of ATP after kind of 8 seconds and your body wants to jump straight to glycolysis, problems created. Beyond that, you have your aerobic system. And your aerobic system is the slowest system in the body. It's the most time-consuming energy system. And that uses glucose, it uses glycogen as well if it's available, but it also uses fat cells to create ATP in the mitochondria. And then for those people on a low carbohydrate, high fat diet who are in a state of ketogenesis, where their glucose levels are so like the body's going to be producing ketogenesis. And this uses fat cells predominantly to create ketone bodies, which are then converted into ATP in the mitochondria. So you see we've got a bit of a thread, a theme of mitochondria. So this kind of leads me on to why do you want to train? Why do you want to do exercise? Why do you want to do any kind of resistance-based training? And my interpretation of that is you want to create dense, healthy mitochondrial cells, as many of them as you possibly can. So when it comes to training, I use the idea of what I call GPP, which is general physical preparedness. So before you go on to any kind of weight training or resistance training, you need to be able to do very simple tasks. So to master the basics before you can go on and do some of the bigger stuff. So what do I use as my base general physical preparedness levels? And this would differ from person to person, and this doesn't necessarily mean that this is what you must be able to do before you go on to do any weight resistance training, but the ability to walk for, say, X number of minutes. And this would differ from person to person. So at the moment, you're only able to walk for, say, 1 or 2 minutes before you really, really struggle. Well, then your next mini goal should be 4 or 5 minutes. If you're able to do 4 or 5 minutes quite easily, or you should be looking to do sort of minimum of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. The idea being is that you need your body to get used to getting into your second wind. Another one of my basic GPP levels that I think of is the ability to stand up and sit down into a high-ish chair, sort of 3 to 5 times. So you can call that a squat, for example, with no hands. So basically sitting down into a high chair and standing up. You can set yourself, take a breath, repeat. If you do that 3 to 5 times, you're kind of moving in the right direction. Use that as a guide. Again, if that hurts, then you need to be thinking about, either speaking to your doctors about this. Another one that I use is the ability to go from a standing position to lying on the floor and then getting up using one arm only, lying back down, being able to get up with the other arm. So very, very simple, but these are the kind of the stuff that we want to be able to do when we're in our 90s. And everybody should be able to do that now. Or that if you can't do that now, then that's kind of the goal that you should be working towards before you even think about doing any weight training or any kind of resistance training. Do these basics. And so those that are actually interested in going into strength training or resistance training, I use a system based upon the idea of mitochondrial density. So the bigger the muscle group, the more mitochondria you're likely to have, which means the more efficient you're likely to be through your exercises. So legs, big muscles, powerhouses, glutes, quads, hamstrings of the legs. This is where we have most of our mitochondria. And in the one client which I have with McArdle's, his leg power is so much higher than his upper body strength. Use the idea that the bigger muscle groups, like the muscles of your back and your legs, are more powerful and more likely to produce a more efficient exercise. Basically what you're trying to do is you want to use the muscles that have the most availability to create energy to exercise. You want to be training the bigger muscles more than the smaller ones. So arms, shoulders, they're going to fatigue quicker than your legs. So be very, very smart if you're going to be doing any pressing or any pulling with the arms and the shoulders. Do 0 isolation exercises. So bicep curls, no. Tricep pull downs, those kinds of things, no. You're not going to be utilizing your body to the most efficient value. You're going to fatigue quicker and put yourself into more danger of cramping. So big muscles, big compound movements, no isolation. But by big compound movements, I'm talking multi-joint movements, like a squat, like a lunge, like an upper body push and upper body pull. None of these isolation exercises. With regards to reps, so this brings us back to this phosphagen system when training my client with McArdle's, that we rock around the sort of 1 to 5 rep range, which generally, depending on the speed of the exercise that you're doing, will take you anywhere between kind of 1 second and kind of 7 or 8 seconds. So we're utilizing the energy system that anybody with McArdle's has the greatest availability to use. And that is your phosphagen system. It's your ability to create ATP from creatine. Okay? So 1 to 5 repetitions is kind of my favorite. Whether with regards to how light you go, how heavy, use your common sense. You want to increase the intensity as time goes by, but you need to be sensible to begin with. So when you say 1 to 5 reps, you want to feel the weight, you want to feel the intensity. You don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to have any cramping or any burning in the muscles. With regards to rest, once you've done your set, anywhere between kind of 90 seconds, so 1.5 minutes to kind of 3 minutes. To begin with, I'm more of a fan of going for the longer rest period, so you give yourself a good opportunity to recover fully before doing your next set. I'm not going to give specifics on the number of sets that you should do, etc., like that, per body part, because that needs to be specific to you. So if you're thinking about doing any weight training or resistance training, find a trainer that actually understands what McArdle's is, and find someone that understands these energy systems. And again, I can't go too specific because you're all individuals. You need to seek help from someone who knows you, and you want a training program that's going to be specific to you. But if you want to invest some time in yourself to kind of learn more about this, those are my loose ideals. Okay, thanks again.